Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. And in this video, I'm going to finally talk about the Delphi Murders. Now, this is a case that has gone on for a long time, but it finally seems like somebody is going to be held accountable for the murder of two young girls quite a long time ago. So the actual murders of Abigail Williams and Libby German, may they rest in peace, and sending prayers to their families, what they've been through over the last 3 years, because 3.5 years, 6 years, because this murder or these murders happened in 2017. February the 14th, Valentine's Day. You know, I've said to you, so many things seem to happen around important dates. But anyway, I'll tell you the circumstances. I'm going to show you a photo, first of all, of the two girls who were best friends. Yeah, that's the suspect. But I want to show you, first of all, the girls. Here they are. So this is Libby and her best friend. They, typical young girls, you know, Abigail and Libby. I think that's, Liberty was her full name. Let me just see which way around they are there, because Liberty on this photo is on the right and Abigail is on the left. Very young girls, both similar age, so they think that the actual murders were committed on February the 13th. And both the girls then were round about 14. So Abigail was born on June the 23rd, 2003. So she would have, she would have been 13 then. And Liberty was born on December 27th, 2002. So I'll take it she would have been a year older. Yeah, 13. Yeah, Abigail was 13 and Liberty, or who was known as Libby, was 14. Now, these two girls, they just decided they wanted to go on a trail. It's these nature trails again. I mean, it's particularly awful, isn't it? Because these places are places of beauty, these nature trails, you know, Rachel Marin, Miriam, the lady that went missing not far from Rachel, so that was on a nature trail. Then you've got Charlotte Senna, who was kidnapped from a national park, from a state park. You know, it's terrible. People should be allowed to go and enjoy these places of beauty without being worried, you know, that something terrible might happen to them. So anyway, these two girls, they disappeared from near the Monon High Bridge Trail, which is part of the Delphi Historical Trails in Delphi, Indiana. Now, they'd asked their parents to, you know, they said they wanted to go on this trail. The parents dropped them off, and then, the older sister dropped them off, Kelsey German, and off they went, hiking around Deer Creek among woodland. They went over the bridge. Now, at 2:07 p.m. that day, German posted a photo of Williams. I wish I wouldn't call them by their surnames. So, sorry, Liberty posted a photo of Abigail, who was walking the bridge. Now, I'll show you a picture of the bridge shortly, or it'll come up in a video. It's very high. Gosh, I don't think I'd like to walk over it. But anyway, after she posted this photo on the social media, they were never heard from again. They were reported missing at 5:30 p.m. when the family turned up to pick them up because they were supposed to. Again, they call it on here, they're calling her German. Libby's father went to pick her up at 3:30. That was the time that they'd arranged. Sorry, 3:15, and then they weren't there, so he waited till 5:30, and then they reported them missing. So they searched for them themselves at first, calling for them, etc. Now, when they finally called the police, authorities did not suspect foul play at first. You know, it's obviously not a place where things happen often. You know, and I think that can be a problem sometimes, because although these were young girls, they were 13 and 14, so it's not beyond the realms of possibility, is it, that they might, you know, have got lost, or they might just have forgotten the time, or whatever. So it's a difficult situation, isn't it? And I think in times like this, they probably don't listen to the parents. Maybe the parents were saying to them, look, if they said they'd be here at 3:15, they'd be here at 3:15. Anyway, the following day, the parents' worst nightmare happened, and their two bodies were found about half a mile away from the bridge. And they were found apparently on the north bank of Deer Creek. Now, we don't know much more than that, because, as far as the actual murders were concerned, because police are reluctant to release details of, as always. You know, this case there's been no movement on this case, or there had been no movement of this case. So bearing in mind, this was 2017, and it's only really been this year in 2023 that there's been some movement. You know, there's been a suspect has been arrested. And the trials, I think it's set for next year, but we'll check that later. Now, so in all that time in between, now whether the police had this suspect in mind is another matter, but they obviously didn't have enough evidence to arrest anybody. So it just shows you, you know, justice can be have a long arm sometimes. You know, we get frustrated. We want instant justice, don't we? We want people to be caught instantly, and we want information from the police. And all the time, the police they do have to be so careful what information they give out, because when they do finally have someone and they do finally take them to trial, they cannot risk that trial will be compromised because of information that's come out in the meantime. Anyway, they had one clue. Because one of the girls had taken Libby German, had the forethought, bless her, rest in peace, Libby. I hope you are at peace. Now this guy has been caught, you'll be even more at peace, hopefully, when he's finally, you know, actually taken to court and convicted and sentenced. But from her phone, the police released an audio recording which they could hear the voice of the suspect saying clearly, down the hill. They also had a visual image of the guy taken from the mobile phone as well. So apparently there's more evidence from the phone, but the police have not released that because they don't want to compromise any future trial. So there were many rewards were put out. I'm just going to share with you the composite sketch that was made at the time, because you will see that this was quite an accurate sketch. Somebody must have seen this guy on the trail. So these were the sketches that have been issued for the guy, okay? And now I'm going to show you the guy, and you'll see. Here is Richard Allen here. This is the picture. I think does look so much like sketch that was done, and of course they have got a little, well, they have released part of a video. They've probably got more of that as well. Now, another reason I want to look at this particular picture especially, this is chilling. Let's see if I can get it up any bigger. Yeah, here he is. So here he was when he was arrested. You'll see in pictures we'll look at later. He's lost an awful lot of weight since then, so I don't think prison is agreeing with him. It's a shame, isn't it? I know he hasn't been convicted yet, but oh no, it didn't. Why is it not making that picture? I want to show that particular picture. Here. Now this picture is chilling because here he is, the guy, Richard Allen. This is his wife. He's in a bar, and look, here is the one, you know, the suspect. Oh, I need to share it. Here is, this is Richard Allen, the suspect that's been arrested. This is his wife taking a selfie, not knowing the monster that is stood behind her, allegedly. And in the background of this bar, this is the e-fit of him, actually in the bar that he's in. Now here we have the video of him that was released down the hill. So can you imagine that? He's coming walking towards them over that bridge, and those girls had the presence of mind, you know, to actually take a sneaky video of him and audio. And you notice he says, girls down the hill. Sorry, guys. Why is that gone now? I hate it when it... I wanted to show it again. It's not letting me go back to it. I don't want to look at that. Definitely, whatever that is. Let's see. Can I see it again? Which advert one might have to... No, this is another one. Oh, so annoying. Let's go back to it. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so we're back to the Mail Online. So he's 50, the guy. He's been charged with the murders of Liberty German, 14, and Abigail Williams, 13, in Delphi. They'd been hiking together along the Delphi Historical Trail near the Monon High Bridge, and it is high, you'll see it shortly. When they failed to show up at their pickup location, they were reported missing. Their bodies were found the next day. Now, the judge has sort of sealed everything. This was in 2022. He sealed everything, but things were opened up this year. So there has been things leaking out. Unfortunately, there's been almost too many things leaking out. This is the worry for the police. If too much leaks out, it's going to compromise his trial. So his bail was set at $20 million after he was arrested. And he had never been publicly linked to the case before, so it was a shock. So he was arrested when this was in November in 2022. So 5 years this guy has been sitting in that bar with that picture of him, you know, of himself behind him. 5 years. those parents, oh God, it's in his eyes. Look at his eyes. I feel like he's looking at me. He's all angry. Good. I'm glad you're angry. Well, he's definitely suffering in prison because, well, you'll see the video in a minute. He looks like a different man. He's lost a lot of weight. Okay, so yeah, it's all still a bit secretive. Oh, there they are. Let's have a look at their photos. Liberty. This is the little map, isn't it? So they were dropped off here. And I presume that's where they were going to pick him up. Then it was pick him up. It was cordoned off and their bodies were found here. Bless. Now, as I say, no, this is that picture. Yeah, smiling with his wife while over his shoulder, a police sketch strongly resembling him is posted on the wall inside Bob Matlock's bar where he's having a drink. God. You know, he must have thought he'd got away with it. Let's watch this video. So this is the video that I'm trying to show you again. I mean, it's awful, isn't it? Because especially because there were two of them. So, you know, you would think that your daughter, your child would be safe with their friends, you know, more than one of them. And gosh, I don't want to get angry, but those poor girls. So this was the last photo. Well, you know, there may be more footage that the police have. But it actually makes me dizzy looking at this, because this bridge, I mean, I didn't realise how high it is. I mean, obviously it's quite wide and it's safe to walk across. But when you know, for someone like me who has a fear of heights, I don't know if I could have walked. Well, I could walk across it if I had to, but I don't think I would choose to walk across it. But anyway, there's Libby being filmed by a friend just moments before they were, you know, taken from this planet by an evil man. And that was the sketch. You can see it looks just like him. Apparently, so I mean, I do feel for his wife. I do feel for her, because this will be awful for her. And they live just miles from the bridge where the two teens disappeared. So it just shows, because you never know, you know, what's going on in people's lives. This is another that was released. This doesn't look so much like him because there's no facial hair on it. Oh, there's another picture of him with his wife. He does not appear to have a prior criminal history, and he was known locally for working in the local CVS. And I don't, you know, I'm rubbish with initials, so I have no idea what CVS means. You know, he looks sort of normal there, doesn't he? His wife obviously thought he was normal. That's his daughter, his 28-year-old daughter, Brittany. And this is a picture that was posted to Facebook by his wife, Kathy, in 2018, just over a year after the girls disappeared. And she is sitting there on the bridge, that poor girl. So my heart goes out to her as well. I mean, who did he? Makes you wonder, you know, these sort of sickos, they get sick pleasure out of things. Did he get sick pleasure of taking a photo or having a photo taken of his daughter on that bridge that he'd walked along? Joe, sometimes people are just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Those girls, any other day, maybe they would have gone there and they would have had no incident. And that particular day, he was there. Or was he always hanging around? It's chilling, isn't it? That, you know, just being in the wrong place. And that could have been his daughter, but with some other nutcase, some other psychopath. I don't understand how these people don't think of their own children. You know, when they're killing other people's children, it doesn't seem to matter. You know, even though they've got children themselves that supposedly they love. Yeah. Let me just go back, make sure I haven't missed any of the pictures. Anyway, so prayers for Brittany as well, because I do feel for her. It's not her fault. It's not his wife's fault, Kathy. It's his fault. He's brought all this. Oh, so these are Libby and Abigail's family members at the news conference. God. There he is again. It's the prosecutor. Gosh. You know, sometimes you just can't get your head around the fact that these people are normal people, you know, live amongst us, walk amongst us, family people, spouses, children, walk amongst us. All right, these poor girls. That's the video again, isn't it? We won't look at it again. And that I do find this picture so chilling. He's sat there smirking and knowing every time he's gone in there, he's known that that's him that's being looked for. Hi, Libby and Abigail. Okay, so let's just go back to what the article says. So it's just going into the different charges he might face. We're waiting for that anyway. We're waiting to see, you know, it's all happening. And this is current now. The actual, obviously the incident is quite a long time ago. And that's so sad, isn't it? Liberty German, that was on her social media. That was her last photo. Very sad. I'm getting quite upset now, so sorry. Okay, I need to come off that. Right, okay, so let's go back into this case. Let's go back into the actual case itself. So all these years went past, and then finally, on October the 26th, 2022, this guy was taken into custody and appeared in court on October the 28th. He was charged with 2 counts of murder. He has pleaded not guilty. Now, his trial was originally supposed to start this year in March, but it was delayed at the request of his defence team. Now, so what the defence, so how are the defence defending him? Well, I'll tell you what he said. He has said, or the defence team have said, or he said through them, that these girls were murdered by an Odinist group. Now, for those of you who don't know what an Odinist is, which I didn't until this, I've found out now what it is. Odinism. So Odinism is an extremist group, white supremacists. Now, why Odinists would want to kill Liberty and Abigail, I don't know, because they are white. So, you know, you'd think that they'd be the last person that an Odinist would want to kill. But it's a term frequently given to a racist variant of the Norse pagan religion known as Asatru. In fact, I'm going to share this with you so you can see it. You know, what is wrong with people? Why can't people just, you know, why can't people just accept that everybody's the same inside? You know, we do have cultural differences, of course we do, but we have to accept each other's differences. This racial supremacy of any race, I just think it's terrible. But anyway, Odinism is a term frequently given to a racist variant of the Norse pagan religion known as Asatru. Asatru is a religious sect that attempts to revive ancient Norse religious beliefs and practices of pre-Christian Europe. Asatru is not in itself a racist religion, although some white supremacists consider themselves Asatruists. Odinism is sometimes referred to as Wotanism, and it tends to be popular amongst white supremacist inmates, so people in prison. Dear me. You know, honestly, that these sort of things do make me despair of the world sometimes. So now I'm going to show you a video now, which talks about Odinism and what. So he's saying that it was Odinists that committed this crime. Not that he's an Odinist. But anyway, let's have a look at this video. We're going to have a look at a video from Court TV, which talks about it, which might give us a bit more understanding of exactly what we're dealing with here. Just need to find it. Yeah. Okay.
For more than 5 years, it was a mystery, an unsolved case with many leads, suspicious characters, and so many rumors. Investigators released very little information, but journalists, podcasters, and true crime followers all speculated on what happened to best friends Abby Williams and Libby German, two teenage girls living in the small rural community of Delphi, Indiana.
Yeah, and this has been in the true crime community. You know, I've seen loads of videos about this case. And the thing is, you know, it's like with Nicola Bulley, like any of these cases when it's mystery. I mean, obviously these girls it was declared a homicide. But, you know, any cases where there's any mystery and the public don't feel like things add up, the police, it must be very frustrating for the police when they're trying to conduct an investigation and they can only give out a little bit of information because they don't want to compromise the investigation. It probably is so much more difficult now with social media because people are interested and they, you know, they'll go there, they'll take footage, that, you know, I think there's no point saying why do people do it. People do it. So I think what the police and everyone has got to try and do is
a town with just 3,000 residents. On February 13th, 2017, the girls had a day off from school and they decided to go on an outdoor adventure. They were dropped off near the Monon High Bridge, and that's where their bodies were found the next day. More than 5 years later, Richard Allen was arrested for the murders, but he is claiming his innocence, and the defense has their own theory of the case. A group of white nationalists who practiced the ancient Nordic religion of Odinism murdered the girls in a ritualistic killing. They also claim the reach of these local Odinists goes all the way to the prison where he is being held. Tonight, we take a look at this alleged Odinistic conspiracy from the scene of the murders to the suspected killers to the prison and the guards watching Richard Allen as we continue our investigation of the Delphi murders. I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments as we take a lot of time to take a look at the Delphi murders. Now, there's two ways of looking at what we're going to do this hour. Two ways to look at it. Number one, the defense is alleging all of this, okay? So it's the defense who is making allegations relative to this Odinism. Two ways to look at that. One, does it just kind of raise a doubt as to what's really going on here, right? And that's a tactic that is used by criminal defense attorneys in every criminal case that we cover, right? There's some way that they're trying to, they always say, muddy the waters, right? That's one way to look at what we're going to go through tonight. The other way to look at it is this the truth? Is this what really happened? Is an innocent man being charged with murder? Now, from my perspective, especially at this point of everything, actually all the time, I'm concerned with what the truth is. What is the truth? So we're going to go through this Odinism to figure out what exactly it means relative to the truth. Not like, oh, yeah, it could really, mess up the prosecution. No. Tonight we're going to try to figure out the relationship of what they are alleging to the truth of what happened to these two girls. And this is it's a horrific case. We know that. This is terrible, terrible what happened to Libby and Abby. The murder scene was strange. There were things at this murder scene that were a little bizarre.
perhaps staged, perhaps a ritual. Whatever it was, this was not a normal, and I don't want to say, there's never like anything that's normal when you talk about murder, but it's not someone is killed and then the killer just gets out of there and the body is just left wherever it was. There was something that was done at that scene afterwards, and then the clothing, all of it. It was strange. And the question is, what's the significance of all that? We're going to dive into that tonight. Richard Allen is saying, I didn't do it. He's saying the Odinists did it. I mean, it's a clear finger they are pointing in this case. And we're going to take a look. We'll take a look at the scene. We'll also take a look. We won't name anyone, but we'll take a look at the people that he's pointing the finger at and what circumstances surrounding those people that have the defense alleging that Richard Allen is innocent and these other people are guilty of this horrific murder. And then we've got to take a look at what's happening in that prison where he's being held. He's alleging that you've got some prison guard pagans who are practicing Odinism. That it's not just the murder scene, it's the murder scene, it's the killers, and it's the people who are guarding him inside the prison. So we're learning more this week. We've got to take some of these pieces and figure out, is it a case where there's just a little trace of truth to it and then it's kind of being expanded out? Or is there something to this? Because again, this is a case, took 5 years to get to this point for an arrest. But now the defense has turned it around and said, well, wait a minute, this is something completely different. So let's begin at the prison, because this is the latest stuff and information that we've gotten, because we've got a response from the prosecution and the prison guards themselves. So the defense in their memorandum is alleging that members of a pagan Norse religion Odinism predates Christianity, hijacked by white nationalists. So it's an actual religion, but it's been hijacked by white nationalists who ritualistically sacrificed Abigail Williams and Liberty German. That is clear. That's what their allegation is. That's who did it. The evidence shows that during his pretrial incarceration at the Westville Correctional Facility, Richard Allen has been monitored, intimidated, and mentally abused by correctional officers who are also members of the Odinite cult. Well, how would he know that? Here's the allegation. These Westville corrections officers boldly wore patches on their Department of Corrections uniforms that proclaimed, "In Odin we trust," along with another patch displaying symbols of Odinism, the interlocking triangles. Big allegation, right? On their uniforms, they are wearing these Odinist symbols and being very bold about it. So what was the response from the prosecution and from those prison guards? We've got that for you tonight. The state's response was, and again, we're not naming any of the corrections officers here, that both Sergeant X and Sergeant X have worn patches that refer to Odinism, that those patches reflect that Sergeant Unnamed and Sergeant Unnamed's religious beliefs are not associated with any kind of cult. So they are Odinists? That's what I'm hearing. Now, affidavit from each of these correctional officers. We begin with number one. I have been an acting supervisor in APOD, where the defendant is housed since late February, early March 2023, that I do not practice Odinism and that Norse paganism heathenry is my practicing religion. So it's a different form of paganism, I guess Nordic, because it's Norse, right? Heathenry, not Odinism. I don't know the difference. I'm sure there probably is a difference. You know, there's a difference between Roman Catholics and Greek Orthodox and other types of Christians. I get it. But it's still interesting. Now, here's the big one. I do wear patches on my uniform that identify me as someone who practices Norse paganism heathenry. The patches are real. The patches are real. But says, I am not part of a cult. I am not part of a radical hate group. I have never had a one-on-one conversation with the defendant where I tried to influence him in any way. Correctional officer number 2, I do not practice Odinism. I do wear patches on my uniform that can be, but are not associated with Odinism. Can be? So it's an Odinistic patch that, yeah, you could look at it that way, or you could look at it, I guess a different way, right? I guess if someone was wearing a cross, you could say, well, it's a T. It wasn't a cross. I don't know. That the patches pay the utmost respect to my religious higher power, the same way a Christian person would wear a cross. There you go. Okay. How about that, folks? How about that? Let's bring in my guests. Joining me tonight in Indianapolis, Indiana, hosts of the Murder Sheet podcast. Make sure you download tonight, Anya Kane and Kevin Greenlee. And in Salt Lake City, Utah, I saw him shaking his head. Retired police commander, host of the Profiling Evil podcast, also an expert on religious cults. Mike King is with us. All right. I'll get to you in a second, Mike, because I know you got a lot to say about this. All right, Anya and Kevin, so this was the week where we had the response, and am I reading anything wrong? And do you have more information that it seems these guards, 2 of these guards, were wearing patches associated, whether directly or loosely, or could be interpreted as Odinism?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and we've learned a lot about heathenry and paganism since all this came out. But heathenry is a blanket term that refers to people who believe in the Germanic gods of old, the Norse gods of old. And that includes people who are not racist, they're not in cults, they're just normal people like you and I, like just like how I'm a Roman Catholic, right? And that's their religion, nothing wrong with that. Odinism refers to a slice of that community that takes that and is white supremacist. They're linked to prison gangs. So basically calling all people who are heathens Odinists is a bit like calling all Mormons or people of the Church of the Latter-day Saints, affiliating them with followers of Warren Jeffs, who runs a polygamous cult that targeted young children. So it's kind of like the defense is painting with a very, very broad brush when they refer to basically all symbols associated with heathenry as being directly linked to Odinism, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. does. It does. And we've been saying from the beginning, you know, freedom of religion in this country. You can practice whatever you want. I mean, this religion predates Christianity. It's been around a long, long time. But it's how common is it? Because before this, I'll be honest, never heard of it. Don't have any friends who have ever discussed it with me if they practice it or if they know people that practice it. In all your research, you're finding that it's more common than we might think.
I think it's interesting because we've definitely found and heard from a lot of pagans and heathens who've reached out to us saying, I in no way am involved with child murder or child sacrifice. That's not what me and my fellow members of the faith are about. So we've definitely heard more about it now just because it's being sort of targeted by the defense in their, scheme of a grand conspiracy involving Odinists across the state. And so I think it's probably a little more common than we might think. And again, most heathens are very normal, just nice people. Odinism, the sect, the kind of side of things that aren't so nice, that is linked to white supremacy, criminal gangs, prison gangs. So that is where you actually do get people who are, maybe more, concerning, I suppose.
Right, and that's where the defense says that it's been hijacked by white nationalists, which would be folks in prison. But and the question is that where these prison guards are, or are they on the other side of this? All right, Mike King, when this all came down, we were like, there's no way that you're allowed to wear these patches if you're a prison guard. Like, you wouldn't be able to wear whether it's a Star of David or something that would show that you're a Christian, a cross, Jesus. I don't think you would do that on your actual, but apparently it was permitted. So what are you taking away from this tonight, Mike?
That once again, expect the unexpected in these kinds of cases that we look at on. On court TV, Vinny. I mean, I was one who stood up on your show and said, I don't believe it. And I'm still scratching my head thinking, who made the rule that allowed that kind of wackery to happen? There's a thing called separation of church and state. And the inmate deserves to know that this is a fair and impartial system. The people working in that system need to know that I don't have to share what my favorite kind of brownie is or anything else. I need to go and do a job of ensuring that inmates remain in a facility, that they're given opportunity to grow and develop and hopefully get better, but that we protect the community from them when they're in there. And I'm just I'm just so disappointed in the fact that they were allowed to do that. And hopefully when that rule came down and they pulled those off of their uniforms, somebody did a serious relook at what a uniform should look like.
And Anya and Kevin, this was, the warden permitted it, right? It wasn't like these were rogue officers who were breaking rules there. This was actually permitted.
Yes, it was permitted. And in fact, one thing that was interesting in these new materials that came out is that it was also emphasized that these two guards happen to have very good records. They don't have records of abusing prisoners. They certainly don't have any records of threatening prisoners or trying to coerce them into making certain statements. So I think it's pretty clear that if it was against the rules, the guards would not have been wearing the patches.
All right. Got some more to share with everyone tonight. And the reason why this is extremely significant is part of the evidence against this defendant is a confession. Take a look. On April 3rd, 2023, Richard Allen, and he's in prison at this point, made a phone call to his wife, Kathy Allen. In that phone call, Richard Allen admits several times that he killed Abby and Libby. Investigators had the phone call transcribed, and the transcription confirms that Richard Allen admits that he committed the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German. He admits several times within the phone call that he committed the offenses as charged. His wife, Kathy Allen, ends the phone call abruptly. So then the defense said, corrections officers were within earshot of every conversation between Richard and his attorneys, and even between Richard and his wife, close enough that Richard would have to be worried about any conversation with his attorneys and with his wife being overheard by Sergeant Blank and Sergeant Blank or other corrections officers. Corrections officers even required that Richard Allen be positioned facing the window where the corrections officer was videotaping the attorney visits with the handheld camcorder. Richard would therefore not be able to privately discuss anything with his attorneys, such as, quote, "The guards are telling me that my wife and family will be killed unless I call my wife and tell her that I killed those girls." So, Anya and Kevin, this is the significance of all of this, because he's saying, or the defense is saying, this confession to my wife was made under duress and direct threat by these officers who had been wearing those patches.
Yeah, I think the most telling thing about that page is the associated footnote, number 15, in which the defense attorneys make it clear that he never said anything to that effect, that the guards never threatened to kill his wife in exchange for a confession, but, you know, it could have happened.
It was basically speculation on the part of attorneys. It was basically speculation on the part of Allen's attorneys, and it is important to note that this is something that is strongly denied by the prosecution in these filings. They have these guards giving sworn affidavits under penalty of perjury, strongly asserting that they never made any threats to Richard Allen, never tried to coerce Richard Allen into making any statements.
Yeah, that's where the memo gets a little conspiratorial, in my opinion, but it's definitely an interesting strategy.
Oh, it's a strategy, but you have to have a good faith belief if you're going to allege that in court. You can't drop footnotes in the courtroom. I don't think. So. Mike, so this is an important piece of evidence for the prosecution, because this is a case that, you know, directly linking this defendant. The obvious way you link a defendant to a crime is through a confession, and the jury has to believe that this confession is not coerced, that it was voluntary. What are your thoughts about everything that's going on allegedly in this prison and him making this call? Does it have the ring of truth to you that he would confess to his wife?
Yeah, it does have a ring of truth to me that he would confess, Vinny. And I think back to one of your guests who talked about the stressors that are on inmates and the need to kind of cleanse at certain points throughout the incarceration period. I think this thing's going to really boil down to transparency and what protocol is in that facility. Is he being treated differently, and do they have a reason to justify him being treated differently, or is this the way that every inmate is being treated in there? And boy, I agree with Anya and Kevin on this concept of the defense merely bringing up, hey, by the way, this could have happened. Well, aliens could have beamed into his room and said something too. And I just think it was really inappropriate. Again, I have to keep pinching myself and saying, wait and see as more evidence comes out. Because this case keeps just surprising me day after day.
Yeah, the only way that gets in front of the jury is if Richard Allen gets on the witness stand. I mean, to me, that's the only way, right? It's the defense could potentially put it in their opening statement and then hide behind attorney-client privilege, as the good faith basis. I've seen that done successfully in trials, but to get it in front of the jury, it has to come from Richard Allen, because he would be the one that received the threat. And maybe, I don't know why the defense would put it out that way, but it could have something to do with attorney-client privilege and not wanting to reveal or get locked into anything that he may or may not say if and when he chooses to testify, but we shall see. All right, here's the good news. Mike King is staying with us, but Anya and Kevin are taking